Welcome to 1850 Main Street, a place where friends get together and talk about their country and hope for a brighter future. Your hosts have built this spot over the past 40 years, meeting every day with people who are in the headlines and behind the real stories. Today, Rob Walgate and Alan C. Duncan from the Public Square are joined by David Zanotti, the CEO of the American Policy Roundtable.
So what would happen if a lot of otherwise eligible mail-in ballots were delivered late? What if that happened in a tight race in a swing state or two? Newman.
What would the steps be? What would the actual process be in regards to how to make this? I think we're always...
If Newman ruled the election?
Yeah, if Newman ruled the election. But aren't we looking for, shouldn't every American be looking for efficiency? Shouldn't we want to make it an efficient, painless process?
We can go to the moon, right? We can't process ballots. I mean...
That's the part that leaves me like bouncing my head and scratching my head. Like, I don't know anyone in this country, and when I hear both sides argue back and forth, that doesn't want everyone that's legally allowed to participate in the election to participate in the election. If you are legally allowed to vote, I think you should take part in the process. I think you should vote, even if you're going to vote opposite of what I'm going to vote.
Is that why you
that's the
helped
part
to
that
run
leaves me like bouncing my head and scratching my head. I don't know
one of the most
anyone in this
organized,
country,
truly nonpartisan free sites in the history of the country. Yes,
that's why everyone that's legally allowed to participate in the election process. Now, I will add this. If you are legally allowed to vote, I think you should. It's the responsibility of Secretary of State if you're going to vote the country to make sure the voter rolls are accurate. There's nothing else that you can ignore for 10 years and still have, whether it's a driver's license, whether it's a Costco card, whether it's a credit card. We got a letter in the mail the other day from a company that we had a line of credit with because of furniture we bought years ago. We haven't used that. We paid it all off when we had to, and we haven't used it. And they're taking our card away because it's been inactive. Yeah, okay, it should be. That way no one can use it. So if you haven't participated in the electoral process, if you haven't voted in years, to think you can show up and your voter registration's good, well, it should be fine.
Hang on, I'm in a barbershop the other day, and I walk in. It's as soon as I walk in, it's like the conversation instantly goes to Fox News because I've been going to the same place for like a million years. So it's like the place was packed and everybody. I never get a word in edgewise.
Fresh cut, as the kids would say, right, Dunk? Fresh cut.
Somebody asked me one question. I never get to answer it because everyone else in the barbershop answers. It's why I go to the barbershop, because I'm really interested in what all these people think. And it's a wonderful, diverse crowd. There's racially different people. There's people of different genders. It's all this most interesting. So I love it. To me, it's the best public opinion poll you could get. Now, I went to this barbershop, and at least three of the people when the conversation started all talked about they had relatives who were still on the voting rolls years after they died. Now, how does that happen? Most state voting rolls are only purged based on a 4-year basis. So somebody dies, and if you're in a state where the ballots, the request for absentee ballots automatically go out to everyone, then you've got a live request. It's not a ballot. It's a live request for a ballot. If somebody chooses to fill that out and send it in, the Secretary of State and the county boards of election don't know any different if they weren't notified.
Yeah, when someone moves...
And when you're at a funeral, the first thing you're thinking of, I got to get home and send the Secretary of State notice of this.
Well, same with when you move. I mean, how many times when you move into a new home do you get mail from the previous owner for years and years and years? I have a relative that is in an assisted living facility, and I check their voter information to make sure that they don't vote because they're in a mental capacity state where they shouldn't be voting, and we know it'd be manipulating the process. But other family members like, hey, get online and make sure that no one voted for them.
One of our trustees who moved from one state to another, actually in the state that they left, had a live voting record. In spite of doing all the necessary things, that voting record somehow stayed alive. And what that person discovered when they went to vote is they already had from a different state. These kinds of things happen. Now, that being said, I do not believe from our research over 44 years that they happen in large enough order to dramatically impact a national election or usually a statewide election. Where this happens is there are races every year that get determined on 100 votes or less. That's where those matters can absolutely change everything in those kind of circumstances. And those races are important too. All right, it is important who your county commissioner is. It is important who your mayor is, who your city councilman, your state lawmakers are. Those things all matter. So voter integrity is important for the entire process. But the problem that we're talking about here on mail-in voting isn't what you would call fraud. It's called the overwhelming of the system. And if the system gets overwhelmed, we're outside the capacity of the boards of elections to count within the time frame that the law requires, which means the ballots that are late are technically illegal. They are outside the law and can't be counted. But what if we have several close states and there's more ballots that showed up late that could actually impact? What if there's more ballots than the actual margin of victory that exists right now? What if there's 30,000 late ballots in the state of North Carolina and the margin on the race is 5,000 votes?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Well, now, this is a completely nonpartisan conversation. It's candidate A, B. We're not projecting anybody. This is not Trump talk.
No,
this is not John Podesta Democrat talk.
Then you'd have to look at the analytics of it all and trying to determine where those ballots came from, what will be the percentages.
Now, you're a district court judge, and I come in on behalf of candidate A and say you cannot let this election be certified because those votes were cast in legal time, and the post office is responsible for them being there late. They warned us it was going to happen, and they're late. What are you going to do, Judge?
I think most judges are going to allow the vote to be held up and allow the votes to be counted.
Bingo. Okay, now, Alan, you're in the circuit court bench. You're the judge now when the appeal comes up because now the other side has said, you just stole that state from me. You stole the state. I was ahead. And now I lost the election by 750 votes because of your decision.
No.
And those are illegal ballots. Mr. Circuit Court Judge, the panel, these are illegal ballots.
Don't you dare try and overrule me, Alan C. Duncan.
No, I'm actually going to agree with you. I do think you got to count them. I think if they're there and you can prove, can we change the law then?
But it's too late now. It's getaway car.
Well, it's not too late today because we're talking about it. I want to know if there's a way we can change the law going into this to where you can.
Not in time for 2024.
Yeah, but how are they against the law? I missed that part.
Because they showed up too late. The ballots have to be delivered by such and such a time, and if they're not in the hands of the Board of Elections by that time.
Why can't you change that? Why can't we change that?
Well, you can, but right now it is the law, and it's not going to change between now and the election. Because a number of legislatures, Alan, are already out of session. They won't be back till next year.
Can they come back?
I misheard. They should be proactive, Alan. You're right. They should be proactive. And I misunderstood that they were delivered too late. I know they were postmarked in time, but the fact that they were delivered too late.
That's the point. They were delivered late.
Now we have a major issue, and I think then that responsibility, the voter bears the responsibility to ensure
they took the risk.
Took the risk. Right. They're going to miss out, and
but
they lose on the risk.
But you see how quickly the argument can change.
So now I disagree with you, Rob.
Okay, so boom. So we still disagree.
It's your choice to be wrong. That's on you.
Thank you. That's why you guys aren't on the Supreme Court. Now it goes to the Supreme Court because we have a competition. The court's got to come in and step in and deal with this. The court comes in, and what if the court says, I got an idea. It's a state election law problem. We're not touching it. We're not touching it.
And they shouldn't.
We're not going to touch this election. It's a state election rule. You battle it out and so what happens? Now, here's what's important. What happens is you can't certify that state election.
Unless that state Supreme Court jumps in and decides it.
Maybe the state Supreme Court say would do it. Maybe not. I don't know, but the court won't touch it. What if you've got a situation where candidate A wins with the late illegal ballots? Candidate B is of the party that the state officials are in both the governor's office and the Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State says, I will not certify this election because those votes are illegal.
And we're talking about presidential votes, correct?
Yes, presidential votes. Presidential votes. So it's a non-certified state. When it's a non-certified state, that means it can't be counted in the Electoral College.
So you're telling me now we're going to have a situation where no one's going to get to 270. Is that what?
Newman.
Thanks for stopping by at 1850 Main Street. We're glad you're here. Do you want to learn more about what is really going on behind the scenes in public policy? Tune in to The Public Square on over 200 radio stations coast to coast. Or download the free Public Square mobile app from your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. Find out what America is really talking about at thepublicsquare.com.
Newman pulls 2 states off the Electoral College, which means no one is legal language qualified to be the president because no one's got 270, which means the race now goes back to the post office. No, it goes to Congress.
Yeah, and this is why everyone should memorize the 25th Amendment.
20th Amendment.
20th Amendment on this case, yes.
All right. So now we go back to the 20th Amendment. The presidency is decided by Congress, and Congress votes per state delegation. Now, the Trump people are saying, oh, right, because 26 Republican delegations and only 22 Democrat delegations based on number of representatives
and you only
per
get
state.
one vote per state.
You get one vote per state. But there's 50 states. What happened to the other 2? The other 2 are split even. So they're neutral. They're still going to get a chance to cast the vote. Okay, but they're split neutral. Think about the deals that get made now. We could end up at a 25-25 tie in the states. Are you with me? Now what happens if Congress can't decide who the president's going to be? Newman becomes president. No, what happens when the Congress can't decide, then the 20th Amendment says the Senate shall pick a vice president, and the vice president shall become the president.
Okay, I have a question.
The vice president elect. It's
okay,
important.
That was
the vice president elect.
That was.
It's not Kamala Harris because she's the seated vice president. She's the Democrat nominee. She's in the contest for the presidency, and she can't come out of that contest and be picked for vice president. And here's why. Because the vice president-elect stays president until Congress votes its way to a resolution. So for the next 4 years, Congress stays split 25, 25, 25, 25. The vice president-elect that was picked by the Senate stays in the presidency for the full 4 years.
So the vice president-elect that's picked by the Senate,
how is it elect if it's picked by the Senate?
That's it. That's what they're termed. They're termed the vice president-elect because they're picked by the Senate, and then they become the president.
I have a question, though. Is it the Senate that's in session right now?
No, it's the Senate.
It's the elected
that
Senate.
is sworn in. All right, that's sworn in January.
Yes, we are all thinking right now. I'm thinking of this crazy scenario because when Dave sent this email around, my response to him was, well, you just wrote a Netflix series. This ought to be fun. I mean.
And all the commercials will come to you courtesy of the United States Post Office. All right. Now, is this far-fetched? Of course it's far-fetched. Does it give you a headache? Yes. Do you hate everything you've just heard for the last 13 minutes?
Yes. Yeah. But the crazy thing is our system would be working even in such a crazy, zany scenario.
There is exactly.
Yeah. And so people wouldn't like it, but this was thought of.
Could you imagine sitting around in 1787 thinking through all of these circumstances? And
that's
actually
wild.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes. The foresight to even consider this happening is pretty wild.
From 1787, they saw Newman coming. They basically had the idea
they had Pony Express, didn't they?
Yeah, people could screw this up sufficiently that we'd end up in this endless catapulting set of problems, whether it's based on political design, intention, corruption, or just plain messing things up. You got to keep the show on the road. So this is how we would go about it. If this happens, if that happens, if the other thing happens, if the other thing happens. So why are we talking about it? One, because I think Newman is one of the most hilarious characters I've ever seen on television. I just think he's wonderful. And I just think that anything that makes us laugh is better. But that being said, I also think there are people today who are scheming right now, just like they were scheming back in 2019 and 2020. And then they told us after the election about all the scheming they were doing. But they didn't tell us everything in the shadow campaign to save the democracy. The people that they told us about in those articles were only the front people. They weren't the people who really made the plan. They were the people who carried it out and got paid to do it. The people who made the plan were 2 steps removed. That's a fact. those people are still around. And I'll bet you we haven't said one thing right now in the last 3 conversations that we've had here on 1850 Main Street that those people aren't already thinking about. So maybe by exposing it now and getting it out there, maybe if enough people, without panic, because remember, this currently is a nonpartisan conversation because this could go either way. All right, and you factor in Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it almost amplifies the potentiality of this as well. It's amazing where this could go.
Yeah, and you watch people's energy switch depending on which candidate it seems to favor,
right?
which is sad. But
so, well, in the election, the process of counting ballots and collecting ballots should never be a partisan issue. That's the part of this that leaves me like,
yeah, of course it shouldn't be.
That's why the whole idea was designed that you and I, all of us, we go. We make our vote our voice. We show up in person. We hand that vote with our signature, all right, verified in our neighborhood. And we trust our neighbors to count the votes. And then we send those votes to our county, and the county puts them all together, and they send it to the state because we're neighbors. If it doesn't work, the conversation is going to happen between all of us at the local level. We're not going to wait on some superstructure, and we're certainly not going to wait on the Supreme Court to make our decisions for us. So you see, this is because I mean, I don't even know how you get out of this. I don't know how you get out of this. I really don't, which is why Seinfeld was such a great comedy. I wish there was a laugh line to take us out. I wish there was. Maybe this is just all a bad dream, and it really would be a bad dream if the post office wasn't telling us we got a problem.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.